Okay, a look at exponential functions. Today, it says students will be analyzing exponential functions using graphs, tables, and algebraic generalizations. Students investigate the effects of the a, the b, and the y equals a times b to the x power, and a in the various representations. So we're going to be looking specifically today at exponential functions. And we'll talk about what an exponential function is here in a second. All right, so let's get started. Up at the top of your page, it says that in an exponential function, the independent variable x is the exponent, which is why we call it an exponential, because it's the exponent. Exponent, exponential. The basic form of an exponential is this thing right here. I need you to circle that for me. Circle that for me. Y equals a times b to the x power. This is what we call an exponential. What they want us to do is complete and analyze the table to determine the effects of the a and b in the data tables. So remember, this is what we call an exponential. Now, in the real situation, or in the real equation, you're not going to have the letter a or the letter b. You're going to have actual numbers, some actual values here. As a matter of fact, we're going to look at two examples right now. In this first example, number 1, we have an exponential, and that exponential is y equals 5 times 2 to the x power. First thing it wants to do is identify which of these numbers is the a and which of these numbers is the b. Well, if you look over here, a is the very first number. And what's the first number you see over here?
5.
5. So a is our 5. B is the number that has the exponent. So which is the number that has the exponent on it?
2.
2. So B is our 2. So A is the first number. B is the number that has the exponent on it. So now that we know that, if you come over here real quick to number 2, which of those numbers is the 8?
8.
8. It's the first number.
Please excuse this interruption. Teachers, at this time, if you will release the football players. All football players, you can be released at this time. Excuse me. Thank you.
All right, the B. B is the number that has the exponent on it. Which is the number that has the exponent on it?
1.5.
The 1/2. So B in this case is the 1/2. So remember, A is the first number. B is the number that has the exponent on it. All right, let's take this a step further now. Over here on number 1, they've given me a table. And in this table, they've given me some x values, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. What we're going to be doing is plugging in those for the x, or the exponent, and we're going to see what we get for the y values. Now, they've already done a couple of them for us. You'll notice here, if we replace the exponent with a 0, 5 times 0 to the 0 power, we get a 5. Now, I'm going to show you how to do that on your calculator. So everybody turn on your calculator for me. Everybody go to your calculator. Turn it on.
Oh, yeah.
Clear your screen. Just clear it. Make sure there's nothing on there right now. Clear your screen. I'm going to show you how you can type this in so you don't have to do the work by hand. So what you're going to do for me first is you're going to type in the number 5. This dot right here means multiplication. So you're going to do times 2. But what we need is the exponent 0. So I'm going to show you how you can get your exponent to be a 0. In order to do that, you're going to use a button called the caret symbol. And you can find that caret symbol right above your division sign. So find the division, and it's going to be the button right above the division. Okay? Right, it looks kind of like a little triangle. See that? When you do that, now when you type in your 0, you'll notice that 0 is on the top right-hand corner of your 2. It's an exponent now. So hit enter once you have that 0. And what's the number you get?
5.
5. That's exactly what we have right here. It's a 5. Let's try that again. Let's do the next one here. 5 times 2 to the first power. Try that again. 5
10.
times 2 to the first power. And the number you get this time is a 10, which they've already given to us. The next one we have is 5 times 2 squared. So if you put that in your calculator, what you're going to get is a 20. Let's keep going here. Let's do the next one. Now we're going to type in our calculator, 5 times 2 to the third power. So use that caret symbol again.
40.
You get a 3. And when you do that, you're going to get what?
40.
40, sounds good. 40. And then we'll do it one last time here. This time it's 2 to the 4th power.
80.
And when you do that, you're going to get a
80.
80. So this is how you can type in your exponents using that caret symbol. Now, right next to the table, you'll notice they have something called successive ratio. What we're doing is we're taking a closer look at the y values. And if you look right here, what they've done is taken this y value and divided it by this y value. In other words, 10 divided by 5 gives us a 2. This 20 right here divided by that 10 right there gives us a
2.
2. So what's the next two numbers I'm going to divide?
40 by 20.
40 divided by 20.
I don't get it. Equals
All we're doing is taking a look at this number and dividing it by the number right above.
But
So
why-
40 divided by 20. What's 40 divided by 20?
Yeah.
2. Let's do it one more time. This number divided by the number right above it, 80 divided by 40 is a 2. So notice what's happening here, guys. Every time I'm dividing, I'm getting the same number over and over, right? A 2, a 2, a 2, and a 2. Every time I divided, I got the same number, which in this case was a 2. Keep that in mind. All right, so right below the table, it says, where does the A value appear in the table? Now, earlier we said the A value was a 5. Where is that 5 showing up in our table
Y?
over here? Well, it is in the Y. Very good.
5 is A.
Right next to our
0.
0. Okay, so right here, we're going to put down that it's our starting number, or it's the Y value, where the X equals 0. It's the Y value where the X equals 0. In other words, you're going to find the A right next to 0. As a matter of fact, just like the other day, before you leave here, there's 2 questions I'm going to ask for. One of those questions is, where can I find A?
Oh.
Where can I find the A? Well, you can always find A, which in this case is the 5. You can always find it right next to the 0. So before you walk out of here, if I ask you, where can I find A? You can find it next to the 0. Where can you find A? Next to the 0. Where can you find A? Next to the 0. Pretty easy. You can remember that, right? Where can you find A?
0.
Next to 0. You can always find the A right next to the 0. All right, next one. Where does the B value appear in the table? Now remember, we said B over here was a
0.
2.
No,
Right here. B is a 2. Where is that 2 keep showing up?
On next to 20. No, next to square number. Next to 40.
Where does that 2 keep showing up?
If you divide them.
After you divide it. And what do we call that?
Successive ratio.
Successive ratio. All right,
Oh,
so right here, where do we find the B? It's the number raised to the power of the formula, or it's the successive ratio. It's the successive ratio. It's that number we get after we divide. The successive ratio. So remember I said there were 2 questions I was going to ask you, and I said one of them was, where can I find A? And where did we say we were going to find A at?
Next to 0.
Next to the 0. The other question is going to be, where can I find B? Where's the B? Well, what are we going to say? There it is. It's the successive ratio. So if I ask you, where's the B?
Successive ratio.
Where's the B? Successive ratio. So remember those 2 things. Where am I going to find the A?
Next to the
Next to the 0. Where can I find B?
Successive ratio.
Successive ratio. Those 2 things. That's what I'm asking you to remember.
That's easy.
That's easy. All right, let's go to number 2 here. Number 2. First thing we're going to do is fill out the table, just like we did on number 1. Now, they've already done 0, 1, 2. We're going to skip down here to 3. So we're going to have to use our calculator. So let me show you how you're going to type this one in. I think I've already shown you how to type in a fraction using your calculator, right?
Yeah, but
So here's how we do it. On your clear screen, you're going to type in the 8s. Remember, the dot means multiplication, so it's 8 times.
Parentheses.
Go ahead and get your parentheses. Now, we want to type in the 1/2. We want to type in that fraction. And the way we did that was by hitting the green button and then the y equals, which is right above it. The green button and then y equals. The green button and y equals. When you do that, a little screen at the bottom pops up. You're going to select the very first one, which is going to give us a fraction with a numerator and a denominator. Once you have that little fraction show up, 1 is your numerator, 2 is your denominator. Move over so that you can type in that other parenthesis. How did we get that little, how did we get the little exponent again? The little triangle, the caret symbol. It's right above the division sign. And it's to the second power. Actually, it's to the third power this time. And what do we get? What's the
1.
What's that?
1.
1. Very good. It should be a 1.
The next one's 1/2.
Let's do it one more time. We got 8 times 1/2 to the 4th power. So put that one in your calculator and see what you get.
1.
What's that?
1/2.
1/2. Now, depending on how you're typing it in, guys, it may say 1/2 or it might say 0.5. But what do we know about the two things?
They're both the same.
They're the same thing, right? 0.5 and 1/2 is the same thing. All right, so these are my y values. 8, 4, 2, 1, and 1/2. Now let's come over here and look at this successive ratio that we talked about earlier. All we're doing here is dividing. It's this number divided by this number. 4 divided by 8 is 1/2. This number divided by this number. 2 divided by 4. 2 divided by 4 is 1/2. Or you can do it backwards. 2 divided by 4. What about this 1 divided by that 2?
0.5.
1 divided by 2 is 0.5, which is the same thing as
1/2.
1/2. What about this one? 1/2 divided by 1. 1/2 divided by 1 is just a 1/2. Anything divided by 1 is itself, right? So notice here our successive ratio is always the same number, which in this case is 1/2. All right, we got the table filled out. Let's answer those two questions right below. A, where can we find the A in the table?
Next to 0.
Next to the 0. I already told you, you're going to have to remember that. You can always find it right next to your 0.
And this one next to 0.
Yep, we can find the A right next to 0. B, where does the B occur?
Successive ratio.
There it is, the successive ratio.
Something ratio.
That 1/2 we had earlier is always showing up right here in our successive ratio. So again, the two questions I'm going to ask before you leave is, where do I find the A?
Next to 0.
Next to the 0. B, where do I find the B?
That's at the something ratio.
That's the successive ratio. Successive meaning one right after the other. All right, so that takes care of 1 and 2. Now let's take a look at number 3. Number 3, to determine the A value from the table, what must be the value of X?
The square.
Watch, everybody listen. Everybody look up here. Stop writing. Everybody look. To determine the value of A from the table, what must the value of X be? What did we say? We're always going to find the A next to what again?
0.
0. So what does the X have to be?
0.
0. We're always going to find it right next to 0. Our A can always be found right next to 0, where the X equals 0. Number 4, how were these successive ratios calculated from the table? Let me go back to the table so you can see here. How did we come up with these
We
twos right here?
divided.
We divided. We always divide. So right over here. Now we got to be careful how we divide. It says here that the y value is divided by the y value that comes right before. That's all you need to write for me. A y value is divided by the y value that comes right before it. This is why we call it successive. One right after the other. So we're always dividing the y values, but it's one right after the other. We're not going to skip anything. One right after the other. The rest of that is just kind of giving you an example. A y value is divided by the y value that comes right before. Okay, number 5. How did the successive ratio calculated in the table compare to the b value in the algebraic rule? What did we notice? Let me go back so you can see what I'm talking about. How did these numbers right here, the successive ratios, how do they compare with this number up here, the b? What do you notice about these numbers here and this number up here? They're the same numbers. Is that the same thing over here? These numbers are here. Successive ratio. How does that compare with this up here? It's exactly the same thing. All right, so let's come back over here. They're exactly the same value. That successive ratio that we were talking about is exactly the same value as b. Isn't that what I asked you to remember? Didn't I say, where can I find the b? And we said we were going to say what again? Successive ratio. So they're the same thing. Okay, number 6. If only a table of x and y values from an exponential function was given, how could the algebraic rule be determined? In other words, if I didn't give you the equation, all I gave you was a table. That's it. I just gave you the table. Could we come up with the algebraic rule?
No.
Yes. Yes, we could. What are the two things we need in order for that rule? We need to know what the a is, and we also need to know what the b is. Well, where did I say you can find the a at?
0.
Right next to 0. What did I say you can find the b at? Successive ratio. Okay? So, yes, we can write the rule. We can write the rule simply by having a table. So the first part is the a. The a value is simply the number next to 0. The a value is the number right next to 0. The b value, all that is our successive ratio. In other words, dividing one y value by the previous y value. As a matter of fact, that quiz that I was talking about earlier, that's what you're going to have to do for me. I'm going to give you a table, and from that table, you're going to have to give me the equation. In order to do that, you're going to need to know where do you find the a and where do you find the b.
For what?
Which we've already said. Where are we going to find the a again?
0.
Next to 0. And where can we find the b?
Successive ratio.
Successive ratio. That's all it is. Those two things. All right, let's go to number 7 and 8. Next page, 7 and 8. Now, number 7. They want us to do a couple of things here. They want us to plot the points from the previous data table, draw a smooth curve through the points, and then verify the results using the calculator. Now, because we're a little short on time and I want to make sure we get the little quiz in here, we're going to skip this part right here. So the first thing I need to do is plot the points from the table. By the way, guys, look at this thing right here. Isn't that the same thing we were working with earlier? Yes. So what I want you to do is look at the table that we had on number 1. Yeah. Look at number 1. They gave us a table of values. We have some ordered pairs. The first ordered pair is 0, 5. Then we had 110, 220. Y'all see that? 340, and then 480. So what I want to do is I want to plot those points. However, I can't do that yet because notice my graphic paper they gave me has no numbers on it. So I got to determine what am I going to use so that I can fit this graph.
On X, 1 is, on Y is 5.
Okay, let's talk about the X. What was the largest X value on that table?
X value is 4.
4. The biggest X value is a 4. So,
4.
if I count by ones down here at the bottom, am I going to get to 4? Yes. As a matter of fact, I'm still going to have plenty of room left over, right? So here's what I'm going to do instead. Instead of counting by ones, I want to use up as much room as possible. So instead, I'm going to count by halves, by 1 or by 0.5. So it's going to be half, then 1, 1.5, 2, 2.5, 3, 3.5, and 4. Just so that I can use up as much ground as possible. So I'm counting by halves. Now let me come to the y values. If you look at the table that we had on number 1, what was the largest y value in that table? 80. So we need to make sure we can get all the way up to 80.
5. Go by 5.
All right, let's try 5. If we count by 5, are we going to get all the way to 80?
Yes.
5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 35,
Oh, no.
40.
10.
That's not going to work. Let's try 10. 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80. That worked out
That's
just
what I meant to
right.
say, but I said 5.
There it is. Counting by 10. So now we got all the numbers. Now what we're going to do is we're going to actually plot the points that we had on number 1. So here we go. The first order pair we had was 0, 5. So everybody let's find 0, 5. 0, 5 is going to be right here, right in the middle. That's 0, 5. The next order pair we had was 1, 10. There's the 1, 10. The next order pair in the table was 2, 20. That's 220 right there. The next order pair is 3, 40. That's this order pair. And the last order pair was 4, 80. That's this point up here. So what I've just done is I've plotted the points from the previous data table. Then what do they want me to do next? Draw a smooth curve through the points. So let's connect the dots with a smooth curve. There it is. There's the graph. Now, if we had time, we would put it in our calculator so we can take a look, but we'll worry about that later. This is the graph of this thing right here. That's what you're looking at. That's the graph of y equals 5 times 2 to the x power. Let's look at these 2 questions below it. Where does the value of a appear in the graph? Let me remind you, what was the value of a? Is it the 2 or the 5? 5. And where exactly is it on the graph?
0. On the 0. 5. 5 is 0.
Where is
0.
it? What is this thing?
Y-axis.
It's on the y-axis. Notice this 5, our a value, is right on top of the y-axis. We're looking at this point right there. That's where the 5 is at. It's right on top of the y-axis. Does b, how does the value of b appear to affect the graph? Well, before we answer that question, what is the b?
2.
2. Notice that our b value is 2. So how is it affecting the graph? What does it do?
It's making it increase.
It's making it increase. As a matter of fact, if you look closely at the y values, we had a 5. From 5 we went to 10. From 10 we went to 20. Then we went to 40. Every time we're doing what? Doubling it. And why are we doubling it? Because it's a 2. All right. Very good. All right. Where's that? Here's something. Oh, there it is. All right. So it causes the graph to increase. It's making it go up. Each time, like you said, it's double. We went from 5 to 10. Then we went from 10 to 20. Then from 20 to 40. Then from 40 to 80. Where do you think it would go next? From 80 to
160.
160. Right? Doubling each time. Alright, so that takes care of number 7. Let's come over here to number 8. Let's try and do the same thing. Number 8, we want to take a look at the graph. So, before we can do that, we got to have some numbers down here for the x, and we got to have some numbers for the y. So let's go back and look at the table on number 2.
Go by half.
Everybody look at the table on number 2. Look at the x values. Notice how they go from 0 all the way down to 4. So it's just like number 7 here. We're going to count by halves. Same exact thing. counting by halves. Now, before you answer this next question, we got to figure out what we're going to do with the y's. You'll notice on the table on number 2, the largest y value we had was a 8.
Let's go by twos.
So if we have 8, the best thing we can count by is,
Two.
well, let's see here. We got 2, 4, 6, 8. Well, that's only going to use up half the graph. If we count by ones, would we have enough room? Let's try it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Look at that. I can count by ones, and I use up all the graph. Now I know what I'm counting by. Now I can go back to number 2, look at the ordered pairs, and start plotting those points. Alright, so here we go. The first ordered pair we had was the ordered pair 0, 8. So let's find 0, 8 and put it at the top. And there's 0, 8. The next ordered pair you had was the ordered pair 1, 4. So everybody finds 1, 4, put a dot. The next ordered pair was 2, 2. There's 2, 2. The next one is 3, 1. And the last one is 4, 1 half. 4, 1 half is going to be right about there. So I've plotted the points. What do you want me to do with those points? Draw a smooth curve. By the way, does anybody remember what you call it when you connect the dots? Continuous. Very good. When you connect the dots, it's called continuous. That's what we have. Now, right over here, you'll notice the questions are very similar to number 7. Where does the A value appear in the graph? Well, the A value is 8. And where is that 8? Right on top of the y-axis, just like number 7. On the y-axis. The next one says, how does the B value appear to affect the graph?
It causes it to decrease.
There you go. On number 7, it was increasing. On this one, it's decreasing. Now, if you think about it, guys, you notice what our B value was. It was a 1 half. Look what happens to the Y values. It started at 8. Then it went down to 4. Then it went down to 2. Then it went down to 1. So what's happening each time? It's cut in half. That's where that 1 half is coming in. Okay. Well, all we're doing is taking the Y values and cutting them in half. All right, number 9. Number 9. How could the graph of an exponential function be used to determine the value of A? Now, earlier we said we could find A next to 0. But what if we didn't have the table? What if all we had is the graph itself? Where are we going to find the A? You wrote it down twice.
On the y-axis.
There it is. It's on the y-axis. Somebody's going to make the 100 on it.
Who, me?
Feel it.
I guess next stupid.
All right, so the A value, not only can you find that next to 0 in the table, but you can also find it right on the y-axis. Right on the y-axis. The value of A is the y value in the point where the graph crosses the y-axis. Number 10, how could you determine from the graph if B value is greater than 1 or if it's a fraction between 0 and 1? Well, if you notice, one of the graphs, it was going up. One of the other ones is going down. So the question is, does the B value have anything to do with that? Yes. Okay. The one that went up, what kind of number did we have when the graph went up? What was the number? What was the B value? The B value was 2, right? The other one, the B value was 1 half. So let's take a look here, guys. As long as the B value is the number that's greater than 1, as long as that happens, the graph is going to increase. So if the B is a 1, a 2, a 3, a 4, a 5, a 10, 20, 100, 1,000, it doesn't matter. If it's bigger than 1, the graph is going to increase. The second part of that says, if the b value is something between 0 and 1, like a fraction, like a 1/2, like a 1/3, 3/8, anything that falls between 0 and 1, then instead of the graph going up, the graph is going to go
Decrease.
down, and decrease. Just like our number, that 1/2 is what caused it to go down. And number 11, if only a graph of an exponential function was given, how could the algebraic rule be determined? So this is another part of your quiz here. I'm going to give you a graph, and just by looking at that graph, you're going to magically give me the equation that goes with that graph. So the question is, how do you do that? Well, you need two things. You need to know what the A is, and you're also going to need to know what the B is. Well, the A is easy, right? Where can you find the A? Next to the 0. But what if I'm looking at the graph? Where are you at? On the y-axis. So that's easy. What about B? What are we going to find in B? Here we go, guys. The A value is just where the graph crosses the y-axis, which we've already said. We set it up here on number 9. The B value, all that is calculating and finding two successive points and dividing the second y value by the first y value.
How can I show that?
Finding two y values and dividing second y value by the first y value. Got to be successive points, so one right after the other. Don't skip it. And I am going to give you some examples so that you can have that to look at there in the quiz.
We only have 2 minutes.
Just enough time. Just enough time.
It's all not funny.
Let's not forget, where are we going to find the A?
Next to the
0. And where are we going to find B?
Successive ratio.
Successive ratio. And that successive ratio is just dividing one y value by the previous y value. Okay, we're almost ready for the quiz here. The quiz. There's going to be 3 questions on this quiz. But before I give you that quiz, I'm going to give you 3 examples so that you can have those 3 examples to look at. And hopefully you're going to make 100. Okay? So here we go. Your quiz is going to be number 13, 15, and 17. But before I have you do those, we're going to do 3 of our own together here. We're going to do 12, 14, and 16. That way you can have some examples to look at. Yes, we will. Here we go. We're trying to write an equation in this form right here. So to do that, you're going to need 2 numbers. You're going to need a number for A, and you're also going to need a number for the B. Here it is. The first one. Where did I say I'm going to find A?
Next to the y.
Next to
0.
0. And what number do you see next to 0?
2.
2. So you're already halfway there. Now you need to find the number for B. B is the successive ratio. In other words, it's this number divided by this number. What is 6 divided by 2? 3. You just found the B. There it is. There's your equation.
Wait,
That's the answer.
how'd you find 3? The what? So that's what
6 divided by 2.
That's what we have to do for the other people.
That's what you're going to do for the other.
How easy
Let's
that
try that again. Let's try number 14. It's just like number 12. Going to write the rule again. A. Where are we going to find A again?
is? Next to 0.
Next to 0. What is the number you see next to 0?
256.
256. Now I need to know what B is. B is the successive ratio.
4.
It's wait. It's this number
Divided by that.
divided by this number. It's
4.
64 divided by 256.
4.
It's what?
4.
0.25.
What?
You're putting it in backwards.
What?
It's 64 first divided by 256.
Okay.
It's
0.25.
0.25, which is the same thing as 1/4. If I convert that to a fraction, it's 1/4. Don't forget the little x here, the exponential. There it is. That's it, we're done with that. Now let's take a look at the last one, 16. This time instead of a table, they gave me a graph. We're still trying to do the same thing here, guys. First, I need to know what the A is. A you can find right next to 0. The problem is I don't have a table, I have a graph. So where can I find it instead since I have a
The
graph?
y-axis.
The y-axis. Where's this thing crossing the y-axis?
Oh, 1.
At 1. So the A value is a
1.
1.
But how'd you find that?
Well, remember, they're going by 2s here. So 2, 4, 6, 8, which means this right here is 1. The B. First of all, notice how the graph is increasing, which means it's got to be a number bigger than 1. Well, let's look at the y values, guys. It's going from a 1 to a 2, then from a 2 to a 4, then from a 4 to an 8, and then from the 8 to a 16. So what's happening each time here? Well, not adding to, but we're doubling it, right? So the number here, the b value is a 2. 2 to the x power. So there's our rule. Y equals 1 times 2 to the x power. All right, so you're going to do number 13, 15, and 17 all by yourself. And I want you to put at the top of your paper quiz. On this page, put quiz at the top of your paper. When you're done with it, turn in your calculator, and you can turn in your notebook. You're working on those 3 by yourself. Okay, turn it in for me. When you're done, turn it in.